Welcome, everybody. Lovely to see you all. Maggie, Mark, lots of familiar faces. Matsalesi, Ayani. And you're welcome to leave your cameras on or off. Hello, Dunia. Lovely to see you. Dunia was on last time. You can sit back and relax tonight. Just letting a few more people in, and once everybody's in,
tell us where you are in the chat. Where you are physically. I don't mean your spiritual energy is probably everywhere, but physically, where are you? Let us know. We have, among the four of us, we have 3 different locations. So I think we're already doing really well as far as international reach, but let us know, where are you based?
and
Cape Town, Johannesburg, Somerset, Somerset West, London, Germany. Wow. Roma, that's Italy, of course. Ooh, Fatima, how do I even pronounce that? Help me.
Bloemfontein.
Thank you.
South Africa.
Thank you.
And Lesotho. Lesotho.
You would think that my pronunciation would be better at this point, but no, it isn't. Good. Wonderful.
So,
welcome, everyone.
Yeah, welcome, everybody. And I really think while we are waiting for people to arrive, let us just breathe into this evening. Let us just land in the space. Let us just turn off anything else that we're doing and just create a space for yourself. And so I invite you to close your eyes if you feel comfortable. Put both your feet on the ground and just connect with that beautiful earth energy, that lovely, supportive, grounding earth energy, and just connecting to that amazing innate intelligence of Mother Earth as we send our roots or our anchors deep into the heart of Mother Earth. And we just feel the heartbeat of Mother Earth. And we get a sense of this unconditional love that we can connect to. And the extraordinary thing about Mother Earth is her innate intelligence to heal, her ability to always transform, to transmute, to be able to heal the earth, heal the trees, the plants, the animals, and she just has this beautiful holding, healing energy. And we just feel into that energy as we connect and we ground our spirits into our bodies at this time. And as we grounded, we feel that beautiful earth energy up and down our spines, holding us steady, holding us securely. And then we center in our hearts. And from our hearts, we go up through the throat, up through the third eye, up through the crown, up to the highest point of light that we can reach. And we connect with that healing energy from source, the source of our creation. And we just connect with that beautiful high vibration. And we allow that healing energy to flow down, 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 down into our hearts. And we allow that energy to flow in and around our physical, our emotional, our mental, and our spiritual bodies. As we place ourselves in a bubble of light, but we also place this meeting in a beautiful bubble of light and protection as we share openly in this conversation tonight. We share with Janine and Shaka. We just open our hearts with curiosity and possibilities. And when you feel grounded and in your body, the bums on the seats, and when you're ready, you can open your eyes. And a big, big welcome to everybody from wonderful places in the world. We really, really are a fabulous international group tonight, I have to say. So I'm very excited about this. Tonight, we are talking about something that is really close to my own heart, something I have experienced over the years. The reason I'm sitting hosting this tonight is really from the wounds that I have been able to heal through healing energy. And how do we tune into our bodies? How do we use the alchemy of healing to shift the dis-ease in our bodies? And on that note, I'm going to hand over to Saleh, who will be leading the conversation with me chipping in as always. Hello, everybody, and good evening, Saleh.
Hi, thank you, Cindy. This evening, I think it's special in so many different ways. First of all, it's going to be a beautiful conversation. I know this already. We have some incredible stories that Janine and Shaka are going to share with us this evening. But I think it's also something that I hope is going to help everyone see themselves and their body and their illnesses or diseases or imbalances, from small pain to big illnesses, under a different light, through a different lens, and really looking at our body and what we're experiencing as an opportunity for healing, even when that opportunity is uncomfortable, even when it's painful, even when perhaps we would have preferred to heal in other ways. So I hope this evening brings you an opportunity to connect with yourself and your body in a different way. You know, there's going to be a beautiful conversation. Please stay until the end, because we also have a couple of extra things for you this evening, including some free tickets to join us in London and Cape Town for our upcoming open days. So stay until the end. And all of you are also already registered as attendees. Just keep an eye on your inbox, because we're going to send you a beautiful, beautiful healing meditation tomorrow with the recording. So we're abundant this evening. We're abundant. We have loads of stuff going on. And in the abundance of beauty and wisdom and wonderful energy, on that note, let me introduce our beautiful guest this evening. And I don't mean just beautifully physically, but just their energy you will see is just wonderful. Janine, welcome. She is an internationally certified energy healer. She really works to identify and release the trauma and the limitations that affect our well-being on physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual levels. She is one of our beautiful, amazing tutors at the School of Intuition and Healing for the Energy Healing course. And she has really a wealth of knowledge and personal experience that she's going to share with us this evening. So welcome, Janine. I'm so excited to have you with us this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity, Saleh.
And then from Costa Rica, I told you, it's international. We have a panel with people based everywhere. And to make it even more confusing, you have like people like me who are Italian and based in the UK. So it's all a mix of international nationalities, different countries, all sorts of things. Shaka, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Shaka is a yoga teacher. She's been teaching yoga for over 7 years and really working on the body and the energy from a very holistic perspective. She runs her own business called Skies and Flora, which when I read that name, I thought it was the most beautiful name ever. And she's really works with exploring emotional and physical pain, how that emerges in our lives. She has as well loads of different techniques and skills that she taps into, from Reiki to massage to psychic tarot reading, and of course as yoga, as I mentioned. So she's going to share her experience of her personally. I'm going to get into that in a second. She had a really interesting journey with her body, but also obviously what she has learned in her work with her clients and in her practice. So welcome.
Thank you, Soleil. Thank you so much.
So I'm going to kind of ask you to start in whatever shape or form is comfortable, because I know that you're very generous, open, vulnerable people that are happy to share, but I'm also conscious that these are big things. So I'm kind of going to ask you to maybe give us an idea of either a physical issue, a disease, or like one wound that you'd like to share with us this evening. Give us an idea of what happened, and then we're going to kind of dive in a little bit more in what happened afterwards. Do you want to start, Shaka?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to share. Yeah, I guess the first thing to talk about is I have had many physical injuries in my life, actually, through various different, sports injuries, accidents, and things like that. And so I always make a distinction between, some things that are just physical, like, we do get hurt. We do, we are human, and we're mortal. So we sometimes do get hurt. And I really have noticed that there's really a difference between those kind of, things that happen to our bodies, and then these wounds or issues or reoccurring chronic pain that comes up, and that they're very much a signal around like our emotional, spiritual well-being. There's something for us to look at. And so for me particularly, I had a particular issue with my lower back. And it was 3 years, just literally just battling through. And I guess I actually injured myself through yoga, doing something that I probably wasn't ready for, and I just was trying to throw myself around, and I think my body was like, no, you're not young
ready
enough for that anymore. And I think I always remember one of my yoga teachers telling me, one of my very senior experienced yoga teachers telling me that, sometimes we think that yoga is causing injury, when actually often it's showing us where our fault lines are. So actually we're working with the body, and then things come up during our practice and there's signals. And I think this particular one was also that case. And I had this lower back issue that I just thought was, lower back pain, and struggled with it continuously for 3 years. And it really wasn't until I made that connection, that it was something psychological, literally overnight. As soon as I made that connection, and I changed my approach literally overnight, and I never suffered with lower back pain ever since then. Wow. Yeah, and it was really bad. Like I had sciatica. Sometimes I couldn't even get out of bed. Like it was literally debilitating. And yeah, I realized it was psychosomatic rather than an actual physical thing. And I knew that from I had all these therapies. I'd done acupuncture, massage, I did physiotherapy, and then it was like it jumped. So it was like sometimes it would be like, oh, if I stand up, it helps. If I sit down, it helps. So trying all these different things, and then realizing, yeah, it was psychological. It wasn't until I started to work in this way that, yeah, I had a massive transformation.
Wow. So I have to ask you now, before I ask Janine about her experience, because I feel like one of the questions that people might already have is, okay, but how do I distinguish from the pain that is me being a little bit clumsy, or I don't know, doing any sort of DIY around the house, injuring myself, and then something like what you're describing that actually it almost doesn't have anything to do with the circumstances when it happened. How do you distinguish those two?
I think a big way to distinguish it is to notice, is it chronic or is it healing? You know, like if something's kind of reoccurring, it sort of keeps coming back, you can't
Mhm.
quite get over it and beyond it. I think that's kind of a signal that there's something to work on. Yeah, that's what I would say. And then also because what happens is we become attached often to the physical manifestation of our pain. So it helps us avoid. So I can keep telling myself this story that I can't do this because
Mhm.
I can't do this, I can't do that. When really there's something else going on there. And I think you only start to notice that narrative when it becomes chronic, when it's something you've been working with for a long,
Yeah.
long time. And then I think then it's time to ask some questions.
Absolutely. I feel like this is going to be a very big theme for this evening. So thank you for kind of opening the conversation around that. Janine, what was your experience with the one wound that you'd like to share with us this evening?
Yes, so I've managed to, I don't want to say win or won or the battle, but I've been able to overcome, that's the right word, been able to overcome on an emotional level. I was diagnosed with a social anxiety disorder in my early 20s, which I was then put on medication, plasters. Let's just try to get this poor young woman to stop numbing out and self-medicating, get her stable so that she can function in the world. So there was that diagnosis that was carrying within me, which I know was part of the reason why I then manifested rheumatoid arthritis, which is an autoimmune disease. So about 10 years ago, I started having pain in my feet, but I was very young, like 35, and it took a homeopath almost 9 months to send blood works away to okay, you've got something called rheumatoid arthritis. It's an autoimmune disease. I was like, what is that? Nobody in my family ever had an autoimmune disease. It sounded so terrifying. So I started doing some research. And at the same time, I'd actually just started on the healing course when I did it in 2013. So I remember getting the diagnosis on the Saturday morning as I got up to the Saturday learning, the teaching, to become a healer. And I'm like, how can I help people if I'm this rheumatoid arthritis around attacking yourself? And how can I help people if this has happened? So it was quite difficult for me to then become open and authentic to why this has happened. But the healing course really helped me start identifying, what is this all about? So with rheumatoid, if you don't know, it just becomes crippling. I had it in my hands and my feet, and it sometimes came into my jaw. So then I got locked jaw and I couldn't eat, and unless I was on pain medication. So I was on pain medication for a long time. I refused the methotrexate, which is the chemo where they shut down the immune system. I'm like, I'm not going to poison my body. I'm not going to do that. And so I tried all the other alternatives. And I slowly started realizing the mind-body connection and how my beliefs, my perceptions, my wounds of, the social anxiety disorder, if I'd been counseled through that, would have realized it was a solar plexus issue, not feeling good enough and trying to be perfect, and I couldn't make a mistake, always making myself wrong. I started attacking myself from a very young age. My body started attacking very healthy cells. So that correlation was just mind-blowing for me. And that's when I started the journey of, okay, so if this is what's happening, what's happening in my energy body? What's happening? What are those emotions that are trapped? And for me, it was anger, deep anger, that I didn't even know I was angry. So you had to get really real. I had to get really real with myself. And so it took about 7 years. So, and I find that I actually go in 7 years. Mine wasn't overnight, but that was so appropriate as well, because I've learned so much about myself, life. I couldn't rush through it. It's been such a beautiful journey. Where I've never been this healthy before. I'm not on any medication, not even the supplements. And the pain is gone. If I get a niggle, it's like, okay, where am I at? What are my judgments? What are my expectations? And it's allowing me that message in the moment just to breathe, come back in, use the tools, and then the pain goes. So for me, the body has become my friend, really. And I listen to it now. So yeah.
And that's the thing, what really is interesting to me from what you've said is that you started experiencing in your body something that you didn't even know existed. So when we think about body-mind connection, you know, we think, oh yeah, I made myself sick with this flu, or I made myself sick being stressed, or I gave myself back pain or whatever. But the thing is, you see plenty of people, and we see this as healers all the time, they actually where their body is reflecting on such complex and deep level, that energetic imbalance, they've never heard the name of a certain disease or illness before. So it's not just, oh yes, I'm just making myself sick. It's really that connection between the foundations of our energy being unsettled and then showing the cracks in our vessel. So
Yeah,
I thought that was super interesting that you didn't even know what that was.
no, I've never heard of that before. But you know, it was interesting. So when I was diagnosed with this, then I was supposed to like let my medical aid know I've got this chronic illness and their benefits. I was like, there's no ways I'm having this for the rest of my life. Are you joking? It was just not going to, that was not going to be part of my narrative. I never let medical aid know. I didn't take the benefits because I knew I could, I don't know what, I just knew I could beat this. And I think that's what I really realized, that the power of your beliefs are incredibly powerful. Incredibly, and yes, so.
And Shaka, you were saying earlier how sometimes our illness, our wounds become something that we kind of nurse as our best friends and babies, and like we keep them close and they become part of our identity.
Yep.
Did you also have a moment where you, like Janine, felt, no, this is not going to be me forever? I'm just going to look at this from a different perspective. Were you lost? Were you convicted towards like making a change? What happened?
I don't know. It took me, my healing took place overnight, but I think that journey to that place took years.
Yes.
Because I think it did become my identity without, I didn't even realize that it had, because I was just that person that, oh, I can't do that. No, I can't do forward bends anymore. Oh no, I can't do this, this part of the practice, it was just like this way, like, I can't sleep like this. I have to stand up doing that. And it just, that just became my life. Like, that was it. Like you say, it becomes your identity. And I didn't even realize. So I had kind of, I guess, reconciled to a point. But I think you said something really important, Janine, actually, which is something about processing emotions, because generally, I would say I'm very lucky in the sense that I've generally been very lucky with my health and my body throughout my life. And sometimes I think that's just because I've actually always been very connected to my anger. So this has always been the emotion that I've been the most actually expressive in mostly in my younger years. I chilled out now that I do a lot more yoga. But it used to be like really, like just so much fire. So I do think there's something about just that energy always had a way of coming out. So I don't think it necessarily got stuck in my body. And I do think there's something about that processing of emotions, that being able to let your emotions out. And then I just want to say one other thing as well, because I do always, when we have these conversations, I'm always cautious to kind of not have a narrative around blame, because then something happens to us, like, we get ill or, something awful. And then you think it's my fault. I've done something wrong. And I think it's really, really important to like understand that the mind-body connection is so complicated. I think we're still like learning it, still understanding it, and that it isn't about blame, or that we cause this to ourselves, because we wouldn't if we knew. So yeah.
And sorry, can I just jump in there? And Shaka, further on to that, as healers and people who hold space, also when people come to us with disease, is not judging them either, or going, well, this is what you have to do, or that is what this is connected. How do we hold that space to allow them to process, because often, especially in our communities, like why is this happening to me, and this and whatever. But then it can also reflect back from the healer, and especially people who have family members with dis-ease, and we can go, spot that and spot that. I always say, spot it, you've got it, because often there are things that you recognize in other people that is going on with you. And I think we have to work a very fine line as being healers and having this knowledge of the body and where the disease comes. How do we navigate that with compassion? How do we hold that and witness that without blame? How do we walk with them? How do we go backwards? We don't always go frontwards with our clients. We sometimes have to go back to those pain bodies with love and compassion. And I think sometimes it's about not judging our performance with our clients as healers. Like if our client is going backwards, holding space going backwards is okay as well. But people understand where I'm coming from. That's okay. Sometimes clients need to go backwards.
Yeah. And obviously this evening we're talking about the end of a chapter, as in both of you are at a place in your life where that chapter has ended and you are here talking about it. But I'm really interested in the middle bit of that chapter, where things weren't quite as clear, when things were painful, when things felt like I don't really know what the hell is going on, and I've tried this and that, but actually it's a plaster, it's not really helping. I'm kind of interested in going back with you to that time, especially if there is someone listening to the recording or participating this evening that is actually in that middle part of the journey. What are maybe the steps or the mindset shifts or the things that you tried, perhaps slowly, but to get you to shift from that I'm lost in my pain, I'm lost in what's happening to me and my body, into, okay, there is a way that I can release and unlock this?
So I'll start. So what I found was I had given my power away to others to try and fix me, and ended up feeling like a real guinea pig. And the restrictions that I was put on to heal, 7 years ago, there weren't options with regards to food and stuff. There weren't many gluten-free things, and I had to, I took an extra half an hour to go shopping to read ingredients, all these special diets, and that just led to depression. I lost so much weight. I couldn't even tie my daughter's hair I couldn't grate cheese, and I felt so powerless. I couldn't do little things because the pain was just every day. And I realized it was just so overwhelming that I just took over. You know what? I know what's best for me. I'm going to listen to my body. And that's exactly what I did with regards to, because I had to change my whole lifestyle. I had to reconnect with my body and respect my body again, even though I felt betrayed and I didn't trust it anymore. But I had betrayed it and I hadn't respected it for so many years. So for me, it was, okay, so what is it that you want now? Do you want rest? What, even the supplements, like what because the supplements were just coming out from all orifices. There was just so much that I just had to pause and listen. And through meditation, quiet time, okay, what is going to work for me? Because somebody else with rheumatoid arthritis is going to be very different. So it's around realizing that you have the power to choose what is right for you. So, and it did take a while, but it was around that reestablishing a good communication with my body. So, on the physical level, had to make huge changes. On that emotional level, really dig deep. So I sought out many different healers, and they've all added to what I feel I've been able to accomplish, but it was on my terms, What do I feel like doing? Not a regimented, strict, because there was all around control. And that's why I got into this situation. I was so over controlling, trying to make sure to avoid pain and discomfort, but I was in so much pain and discomfort. So yeah, letting go of control of others and okay, hold on. What do I need? Oh wow, boundary setting, a simple thing of just changing my boundaries. Was huge for me, for myself as well. Where am I not being kind to myself? So when you're with a client and they're going through the same thing, I get so excited because it was such a turning point for me on what I was able to create. I get so excited for them because your body's telling you something needs to change. And you have the power to do that. The only thing you can control are your choices and how you're going to respond. Life is going to happen. So for me, I get very excited when people come with aches and pains that they can't explain and the doctors can't, because like, okay, this is something deeper that we can clear.
But there is the really deep moment of, I mean, for me personally, when this happened to me, I had a moment, it felt like everything was so quiet and so silent. And I realized I've been such a bad keeper on myself. Like I really moved forward and I left myself behind. And there was a stillness in that moment where like there was an anger, there was a disappointment, there was a complete stillness of the stark reality of you've done a really bad job at this and you need to do a much better job at it. Not in a judgmental way, but just, you know, objectively, like all of these things that you feel you have accomplished, actually they came with such a high price for you that like you haven't really protected and honored and respected yourself. And then building trust, as you were saying, back, trusting yourself and trusting your body, and shifting that narrative that I'm the one that was let down, but actually you are the one letting yourself down, shifting that dynamic. It's really hard because you need to take responsibility, but at the same time you need to be compassionate. You need to look forward to change, but you also need to be patient. So it's a hard moment. And I really remember for me when it happened, and interestingly enough, it was also back pain, that everything really stood still for me in that moment of realization. Did you have like a moment like in that central part of the chapter, Shaka? Did you also have this moment of, okay, I need to reconnect with myself? Did you have a similar story and experience?
Yeah, I think it's so powerful what you just said, Soleil, which is that somehow there was a part of yourself that got ahead of yourself and that left the other part of you behind. And I think that's why it's so important. And particularly as well, just coming back to what you said as well, Janina, you've got to listen in, because so often we're so used to, you know, that disembodiment where I'm up in my head and then, you know, I'm controlling, and the kind of the controller at the in the head part, and then we forget our bodies, and actually our bodies are giving us signals every day. No, I need to rest, I need to sleep, actually I want to eat this, actually I don't want to eat that, or whatever it might be, if we're listening to these subtle signals. And yeah, I think coming back to your question, I mean, I really didn't have that moment. Like I didn't know, I didn't it took me such a long time, is what I'm saying, is to get to understand that my body was giving me a signal. And for me, I think it was slightly different in the sense that I think what I had was repressed emotions. So I had repressed things that I was just tucking away in my body without realizing. I didn't even realize that that's what I was doing. I was just tucking these things that I didn't want to look at into my body. And so I think it was the moment when I realized, oh, there's these things in my subconscious, or these aspects that I haven't paid attention to, feelings about things, and they are in the basement. They're in the basement for a reason. We tuck them away for a reason, because they're very difficult to look at and they're very painful. And actually, sometimes I think what I learned through my back pain was that my body would prefer to deal with physical pain than it would prefer to deal with the psychological pain. That actually that my mind was more resistant to that.
It's like a distraction. It's like if I'm in physical pain, that takes up all the time and energy. So you don't have to then look at the anger, the frustration, that fire, that all it really is. And I think, and I even had a conversation with you, I think, Cindy, into my journey, I was like, why do I still have pain? I think I was like, I'm actually creating pain because I realized, oh, if I've manifested this, and I'm so conscious about it now, and I'm so healing the ancestral lines and my negative patterns of behavior, and then the pain dissipated. And then if I didn't have pain, then I'm not healing. I'm not then a good healer if I didn't have pain. And I had to go through that crazy so I had to, so it's like unprogramming again. Why am I doing this to myself? What am I trying to prove? I'm still trying to prove that I'm a good person. So I had to stay still and I went backwards. And that's okay, because I got a deeper level of understanding of how complex we are. It's
Janine,
really not simple.
Sorry, at the time, just to remind you, because I remember Janine was on the healing course at the time, and we would have these conversations, and I think you'd kind of come out and you'd started training as, and the work that you did, the dustbins where we hide these things. And I mean, Janine was looking in every dustbin, and you really did a massive clear out. If you think of getting rid of those psychological box, there were traumas that you'd buried so deep down. And when the body starts talking, you know, what are those traumas? What are those things that are going on? And it just reminds me, I think, sort of my first knowledge around how the psyche and how we think about things and how the emotion affects. As a child, I was sick all the time. From a certain age at school, I had dyslexia and I struggled to write exams. School was difficult. I was very social. I was good at debating. I was good, but I couldn't write exams. My marks were bad, and it was really, really tough. And I used to, the go-to was my lungs. My weak spot in my body is my lungs. And as a child, I consistently had bronchitis. I consistently had weak chest, weak lungs. And it was, you know, so my mother was at the doctor, lots of antibiotics, lots of really just the stress and this, and there was a lot of sadness, and there was a lot of inadequacy around being quite bright, but not being able to express myself, and being very frustrated all the time. And so there was a lot of anger that was suppressed at the time. Do you know, the day I left school, I said, I'm never writing another exam again. I did not get bronchitis thereafter. I went into apprenticeship in hospitality. I loved what I did. I could use my intuition. I could work with people. I was in my flow. I never got sick.
Yeah.
And it was the weirdest thing at that very young age. I'd already put 2 and 2 together, that actually, if we think, so for me, it was, you could positively think yourself out of a disease, because if you're happy and cheerful and your life is in flow, there's no disease in your body. And it was day and night. I mean, my mother, the doctor, everyone were like, you don't get bronchitis anymore. You're never sick. And I'm like, no. But then I took to suppressing that anger of that illness with alcohol. So then the body then takes on another form of suppressing, because there were so many years of anger of not being able to do what I wanted. I couldn't express myself.
Yeah. Yeah, those are the secondary gains that we speak about as well on the course. Like when I did it, and there's that one exercise where you go in and you speak to your illness or your accident. Like why do I have you? Do I still need you? Do you still need me? So powerful. And I got really honest at once. I'm like, if I have created this to give myself an excuse to stop taking on so much responsibility, to make sure that people love me, this is now an excuse for me to say, I can ask for help and not feel ashamed for it. I have an excuse for not being able to, and I would hate being put into situations that I did not enjoy as a child, but I was forced to do it, and happy and all this unauthentic nonsense. So as an adult, I was in that pattern. I would just do it. And I'd also turn to alcohol just to numb out the fact that I didn't want to, but I forced myself to. I'd never used my voice and said no, because I felt I had to do it. So then I thought with the rheumatoid, wow, so if I'm in too much pain to go out, nobody's going to think anything bad of me. That's my excuse to stay at home. And then I had to think about that. And there was a little bit of that as well. So it's all these, it's so interesting how you don't think you you know what I mean? It's many different facets actually then come to the manifesting of your specific illness or disease. And that's why it's so beneficial to look at the metaphysical reason for it and go it is so valuable, because you see your trauma and your wounds and your limiting beliefs.
And there is a slightly different situation when the body helps us with what we're going through, which is illness or trauma that comes specifically to either close or release something, which I know I can guarantee you everyone here has experienced. Is the typical thing when you work a lot, you're very stressed, and then you go on holiday. The first or second day on holiday, you get sick. And we all had that. I think everyone had this, right? So in
Christmas,
right? Whether it's Christmas, whether it's the expensive holiday that you've been looking forward to for months and months, we're so stressed. We're trying to get ready. There is that build up, and then the body uses illness to release something. I've seen this to some incredible extents. I had a client at a certain point who was physically in a very challenging situation when someone grabbed both of her wrists, and she did, and of course it was horrific for her to being attacked that way, and she did a lot of her emotional work. But you know, sometimes there is something that is sitting in the body that hasn't been shifted yet. She had an accident. She broke both wrists at the same time. And that was the end of that chapter, the beginning of a new one. So sometimes our body really helps us, whether it is through, okay, we have to break it and remake it before we can move forward, to release as well. So another type of pain, you know, Shaka, you helped us at the beginning identifying the chronic versus the I'm just a little bit clumsy, but I think the release pain or the release disease and illness is also something quite interesting that I have observed. Now we still have a little bit of time, so I want to kind of go back to you, Shaka, and whether it's your personal experience or your work with your clients, especially if maybe there is someone listening to the recording or with us this evening and they're really struggling, what would your older self recommend, and what would the new self recommend? Like the different parts of you coming, you know, to give us advice on this journey, what would you say?
Yeah, I think the older self would be like, push through, come on, you can do it, just keep going. You know, just ignore that, that's nothing, you know, just keep going, like, you know, just come on. I think that would be the older self, is just push through, break through. But then on the other side of that, I think new self, there is something about the determination to be well. And when you say thinking about like some of my clients, so I teach a long COVID class as well. So I teach well, I cover, it's not my class, so I just occasionally step in. And these are people that are suffering from basically the long effects of COVID, who had
Mhm.
and are still, and their symptoms are always just so like it's it's a constant journey of learning. Oh, what makes it worse? What makes it better? Oh, I did too much. Oh no, I feel really good now. This is great. I'm on a roll. And then like, oh no, crash back again. And I can see like their whole journey. And yeah, I mean, when I'm talking about they're right in the middle of it, like right in the middle of that journey of like, will I actually ever heal? Like some of them have been sick since the beginning, since 2020. So for 3 years, like working with this and literally trying everything. Is it this? Is it that? And I guess, yeah, I think that advice is just that determination to be well, to keep that space of hope. I think, what you said, I can't remember if it was you or Cindy or Soleil, I think, but just in terms of that, like you said, that balance between being really determined in that desire to be well and get well and follow the signals. And even if you're going down a dead end or a blind alley and you're like, oh no, that don't work. That's no, it's not that, and then you're kind of, so it's kind of letting the body make you follow you all of these different places of like this journey of getting well, but then also just being really compassionate and patient, because it can just be a case of knocking on different doors, and you'll find that door that opens for you, and that can take take a long time, and it can, you have to be really patient. I also think it's really important to hold a place of hope that that miracles happen, spontaneous healing happens, that that wellness is a reality and a possibility, as well. But it is a journey, and it can be so frustrating, like when you're talking about when you're in the middle of it, you're feeling the pain, and then also that feeling of like there's something I've done wrong, and then the whole narrative around your pain. So there really has to be a compassionate voice, patience, kindness, softness. Like now I think that's the difference. My old self would be like, power through, come on, you could do it, like push through. And then my newer self is like, take rest, lie down, take time out, be soft, be gentle. Yeah.
And indirectly you referenced something, I don't know why this kind of connection fired up in my brain between the only 2 neurons that I have left, but there is something about also the environment that you experience illnesses in. Yeah. So whether it's people making you feel like a victim, making you feel like it's your fault, making you feel like you're unreasonable, but it can be extremely isolating to be unwell. And seeking out not just the help, as Janine was saying, of the right healers, all of them kind of chipping away slowly at different aspects, but also the support of people around you, helping and supporting you on that emotional, mental, spiritual healing, rather than, okay, now you're sick, that's what you're going to be, or you're sick, it's unreasonable, you're sick, I don't understand what's going on with you. Because the relationships and connections and reset in our relationships that we experience as we are unwell, the kindness, the compassion, the sense of belonging, the understanding, I feel like those are as healing as medicine, energy healing, acupuncture, etc., etc. So I don't know what is it exactly that you said, but you made me think about that as part of it. I saw you kind of nodding, Janine.
It's so it helps.
Yeah.
And you've just triggered something that I think is important, just to go back on, is around this whole epigenetics and why some of these diseases get switched on. Is that and that's also, it's never like my disease, but the rheumatoid, it started in a very, very stressful time of our lives, one of the most stressful. So that's what triggered it. And looking in that environment that I was in then, it was super challenging, but I couldn't change it at that stage. But it got to a point where, so rheumatoid arthritis, for me, I would always isolate myself generally. I can actually deal with my pain by myself. If I ask for help, the other belief was then I'm going to have to reciprocate, and then I don't want to have to owe people. So codependency completely freaks me out because I do not want to feel controlled and trapped. But this illness forced me to have to ask for help because I just couldn't do anything. And I remember the moment I had to ask my husband to help me with something that I always did myself, that vulnerability, that I can't do this by myself. And thank goodness I've got such an amazing partner that he was there, so willing for me, waiting for me to ask for that help, that without him and changing the environment to a place that was calm and nurturing, I think I wouldn't have had the capacity to be positive and I can do this, you know. So it really, really does help having somebody encourage you when you're really down. It really does help.
Yeah, just
You were going to say something, yeah.
And I was
Shaka.
just going to add to that as well, because that's kind of what I found from my experience of teaching this particular class, is that there's something around having a community of people that really understand and can hold you in this moment, in that place of vulnerability. Because like you say, being sick or being ill, it is an incredibly vulnerable place to be, especially if you're used to doing things yourself, you're very self-contained. Like it's really, really hard. And then, like you say, some people just don't understand, you know, particularly with illnesses that are invisible, like rheumatoid arthritis. People don't necessarily, you know, straight away, you know, read that you're ill. And then you have to sort of explain, well, yeah, I can do this, but I can't do that. And then it's like, oh, then no one you know, then it's a really difficult to navigate. So yeah.
You feel quite alone. You feel very, very, very alone.
Yeah.
Very alone. But that is one of the lessons. You can actually bring people in and look for those that are willing to, without judgment, be there for you. And that's why as healers, we can offer that to people that don't have necessarily the community or they don't have the relationships. We can offer that to them. As healers, and help them move through what are your limiting beliefs, what are the trapped emotions. You can, yeah, and just that awareness that that is happening starts the shifts already.
Yeah.
So we have a question, which is a really good question, and we're going to go back to that in a second. But we have a few minutes before we wrap up things with question. Well, I don't know, Cindy, if you want to kind of bring the evening to a close, because I feel there is so much that we've talked about. And the one thing that I'm really, really grateful to our, I don't want to call you speakers, to our friends this evening that joined us, is how you really helped us normalize being unwell, and how it was horrible when it happened, but also that there is hope in shifting out of that situation. So I'm very grateful, because I feel, you know, especially in the holistic spiritual community, you know, we're all young, fit, and, you know, perfect, right? Not really. But, you know, so I appreciate you bringing your stories, you know, a yoga teacher that says, oh, you know, I couldn't do this, I couldn't do that, I couldn't bend down. I mean, I feel like it really makes things quite real for all of us. So I really appreciate that. So we'll take questions in a second. But Cindy, I just wanted to hand over to you to kind of bring to a close part of this discussion.
Sure. So really what for those of you, and a lot of our healers are on our healing students, but really, you know, if you are interested in our 2-year healing course, we're going to be live in London, we're going to have live in Cape Town, and an online course starting kind of consecutively next year. So please reach out to us. You can have a chat and reach out to Natalie. But the other thing I want to do before we go into Q&A is also to mention we're giving away 5 free tickets for London open evening tonight, and we're giving 5 tickets for Cape Town. So if you, I've got it here. If you just send an email, sorry, Shaka, you can't come because you're not going to make it. Cape Town is on Sunday this week, and London is on Tuesday the 5th in Northwest London, Central London. If you are interested in coming, please type London or Cape Town. If you're in those destinations, sorry for you that aren't. We've got lots of exciting things for next year, so don't worry, you will be catered for. But please, if you'd like to come to either of those events, we're going to give the first 5 emails that we receive on that email address for you to come free of charge and join us for a fabulous evening, a fabulous day in Cape Town, and a fabulous evening. It's late here. I'm in Cape Town at the moment, and a fabulous evening in London. I will be at both functions. It's kind of jumping on planes and getting back. Huh?
Will you be at both of them at the same time?
You know what? I'm working on astro traveling and being present, but I haven't got there yet. But it is, yes.
Thank you, Cindy. Thank you so much. And, you know, please look out for that recording email coming your way tomorrow, because there is a beautiful cellular healing meditation that I really recommend. Absolutely beautiful. Plus loads more information about the healing course and the events. But we have some lovely questions. So I'm just going to share with everyone. Did you read anything that helped during the disease times? And then we have another question saying, any book recommendations on this interesting subject? I feel 2 different ways of asking the same question.
Yeah, definitely. Can I just, yeah, for me, it was a book that actually changed everything. That was the turnaround. I read a book called, gosh, it's so terrible. It's the most life-changing book I've ever read, and I can't quite remember it, but it's I'm sure it's like Healing Back Pain, and it's like this tiny little book, and I'm sure the guy's called Dr. something Forno. I think it might be Forno. I think, yeah, it's called Healing Back Pain, and it's really interesting. So he talks about back pain, but he also talks about autoimmune conditions. He also talks about asthma, fibromyalgia, and other kinds of you know, basically, and he says they're all this, he calls it this thing called TMS, which is basically the way.
That's Dr. Sarno. I read his book as well.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so that was the book that changed my life. That was the book that changed everything. Like he was like, right, you know, he's got this kind of step by step, and I think it could be applied to other things as well as back pain. And then I think other books that I think are really useful, like Gabor Mate, who's done a lot of work around addiction, but also around trauma, when the body says no. Issues in the Tissues is another really good book, and Body Keeps the Score. So these are all real books that talk about the way trauma gets locked in our body and then expresses itself in different ways. I mean, there's loads. My Grandmother's Hands, you know, in other ways, there's a lot of books, definitely. I mean, I can write them down maybe and send them. Yeah, that's it. Dr. John E. Sarno. That's it.
That's the one. Thank you, Shani. Good, amazing. More questions. Unless, Janine, you have like a book that springs to mind that hasn't been mentioned.
So I really enjoyed Louise Hay books. The power within you. You know, so it's very basic stuff, but in the beginning, I needed that to give me that encouragement. So yeah, Louise Hay, Deepak Chopra. I mean, most of his books just allow you the tools and the encouragement that you can heal through the power of your beliefs and
yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. So a question from Rachel. Once you have the awareness that illness can be healed, what practical steps can be taken to move forward?
I mean, I think the first one is really, I think just looking at things that you haven't looked at and that you don't want to look at, like in the psychological sort of psychosomatic. I think this is really, I mean, for me anyway, at least that was kind of my experience, that I had a basement of things that I just used to just pack away, like things that I just didn't want to address, I didn't want to look at. And they're about like kind of relationships, how I'm showing up in relationships, how people have treated me, how I feel about myself, things that have happened in my childhood. Like there's just like this little basement of things that just goes, oh, it just goes in there because we don't want to look at it. It's inconvenient. It sort of doesn't feel like, it's too messy. I don't want to look at that. I don't want to feel like that. And it's kind of like wading through all of that stuff. And it's, like, it's not fun. You don't really want to do it, but it's like, I think it's it's necessary. We have to go into that basement and start unpacking those boxes and looking at all of that stuff that, you know, we don't want to. So I think that's part of it. But like you said, Janine, it's like we have to find these spaces that, you know, are holding us in deep compassion, like, you know, with non-judgment, with like space where there is time, there's you know, compassion with moving through this stuff, because it's not easy.
And often when it's a complicated disease, there are layers around that. And for me, just to help answer that question is, you know, I always think a place to start is, what part of the body is it? What chakra is governs that? What does that stand for at an emotional level? And then kind of working outwards from, the back. Was it the lower back? Was it about support? Was it the middle back? Was it about backbone? Was it the upper back around the world on your shoulders? And, you know, if we start working with how the energy works around that, and that's why energy healing becomes so powerful, is because we can then start shifting that energy and working with that energy. And then often the mental body comes up and the spiritual body. But really the steps would be is to work with the energy around that wound and become super curious with love and compassion. Shaka, love and compassion. You know, be gentle with yourself. But become curious around what lies under the wound, because the wound is really telling us something. And where is it? Is it on the skin? If it is on the skin, it's a boundary. You know, we can become quite literal quite quickly. And that might be a mother boundary. It might be a lover boundary. It might be all your boundaries. Generally, if one is shocking, they're all shocking. You know?
Yeah. And something that I often say, you know, when you are dealing with a big pile of poop, and, you know, you've been dealing with that big pile for a very long time, you almost demand a big solution, you know, the big shovel that just shovels all the poop out of the way, especially if you've been stuck and suffering and in pain for years. You know, you wanted the answer to be quite magnificent and life-changing, and the one thing that is going to, you know, get everything sorted. But the reality is probably a collection of habits and tweaks and changes and chipping away. And when you get up in the morning, just
and you're like,
all things, yes,
like I'm not in pain. Like,
yes. But that is the combination of 1,000 small actions that you
yes, it really is
1,000 opportunities for healing. Some of them might be bigger and more significant, and maybe you remember them. Maybe it's a book and you think, oh yes, that really gave me so much clarity. But that book would have been nothing without everything else prior to that. It would be a pile of paper and nothing more, right? Okay, one more question before we go. Yes, Cindy.
We need to ask that question. We need to ask that question.
Because Saskia asked a really powerful question. How do you navigate an injury that you caused to yourself through long-term substance abuse, alcohol, smoking, etc., which then results in cancer? This is such a deep, complex, just beautiful question. Who wants to answer, or at least kind of put a bit of context and information around that? Cindy, you want to start?
So I'd like to stop before it results in cancer, because it's something that happened with myself around alcohol abuse and smoking. So those of you who know me well, there was a time where I drank for the first 40, well, from 13 to 40, drank for my whole life. I've done it. I got there. I got to a place, and it was actually the start of my healing journey. The dark night of my soul, a night in jail, through driving a car. What was fascinating around healing that was finding the cause that started that, going deep down into that. And it was so literal around my alcohol. And I want to just get very literal, because sometimes these things are cause and effect. And I spent 6 months in therapy around my alcohol abuse. In fact, with Sue Allen was my psychotherapist at the time. So we did psychotherapy with healing. And it resulted in that I needed to suppress my sexuality with alcohol because of my relationship with my father. We loved each other so much I didn't want to tell him, because he was homophobic and he didn't speak to his sister for 10 years. When I came out to my father, the whole world knew that I was gay. But when I came out to my father, I was 38 years old, and I kept it a secret from him. Do you know, he still loved me. He didn't want to say. He knew from a very early age. And the beauty of that was actually, when he left, he came to visit me in London. I just took all the booze in the house and I poured it down the drain, and I never drank again. But what actually happened is that I needed to see a physician 6 months later, because the amount of sugar I used to take, everything was out of balance. And I went to see a very fancy physician in Harley Street. And they did a liver test, and my liver was normal. It showed no alcohol abuse, because I worked with my anger. I worked every week, healing, psychotherapy, whatever, and there was no alcohol abuse in my liver. It had gone to other places around the sugar, but nothing showed in the testing, because I said, please test my liver. This is my liver. No alcohol abuse. So I had then created the climate to create the gene, because it was a gene that was in my family as well, and that had shifted through the healing and doing the psychological work. And the same thing happened with my lungs when I gave up smoking. So then also around the healing journey, and these are just things that are so close to my heart, I really feel I need to answer these, was around someone who died of liver cancer, who really then kicked off a lot of stuff for me as to why I'm here today, where somebody was able to heal from liver cancer, and somebody died. And within 6 months, I met those people, same hospital, same time. And the one was able to let go of the anger, of the frustration, of all the stuff that was going, and really surrendered into their healing process and accepted who they were as a healer, and in their life forgave their parents. And the other person chose to leave. And I hold both of these people. The person who chose to leave got me to, again, was part of this journey of being here. I was in jail about 4 months after they passed away, and then meeting the healer who had healed. So miracles can happen, not for everyone. The environment needs to be right. The time needs to be right. Remembering that there are times when we do leave the earth plane, but we can heal from these things. And I've experienced that at face value. The miracles that can happen within this physical body, the wounds in this physical body can heal with curiosity, with patience, and with absolute love.
Thank you. Thank you. It feels like a beautiful place to end the evening. I mean, we can end the evening with love as the last word that resonates in the meeting. Thank you so, so much to Cindy, to Janine, to Shaka for being here this evening. Thank you so much for being so open and generous and vulnerable, sharing your stories, sharing the ups and the downs and everything in between. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for sharing an hour or so your time with you. And we'll see you again very soon. Thank you.
And Sole, thank you for
Yeah.
hosting so beautifully tonight. That was lovely. And Janine and Shaka, thank you so much. If I don't see you in London, I'll see you in Cape Town. If I don't see you there, text me, send me messages. I love you all.
Bye.
Take
Take
care.
care, everyone.
much.
Bye.
Everybody.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye bye.